Hello, Attila here, and today we're going to talk about React Server Components. This video is only possible thanks to a few people. There's a stream from Kenzie Dodds, Joe Savon, and Dan Abramov talking about React Server Components. There's another one from Ben Holmes with Dan Abramov with a React Server Components app. And there's this stream from Theo that came out of his Twitter space that had Ryan Carniato and Dan Abramov, and there was some takeaways from him. Put together, it's about a few hours of content that occasionally do a deeper dive on what happens under the hood in order to properly understand how things work from the React and the Next.js side of things and to untangle that relationship. So now I'm condensing my takeaways in a very pragmatic way, try to answer the 5 more common questions that I've seen coming around on the React Server Components space. So let's jump to the first one. Why React Server Components feel so tightly coupled to Next.js? So React Server Components need a router. That's it, point blank. React packs no server with, but they require a layer for rendering and a way to trigger that response. They also demand some architecture on how each route is handled, keeping those little holes that we're gonna come back to that later within the document architecture so this can be later streamed, since server components can be asynchronous to the first render. So Next.js has been the first framework or architecture for that matter that accommodated all that is needed to have React Server Components to be used effectively in an application. There has been some other efforts in proof of concept to get React Server Components to work outside of a Next.js app. Ben Holmes on that stream that I mentioned before did something like that using a Node.js server and ES build. And Daishi Kato's Waku work that's linked right here is another very minimal framework to have React working to its full extent without a Next.js architecture. So second question, do I need to write React Server Components first apps now? No, you don't. You can slap a use client on top of your rendering tree and go your merry way. But that being said, server components are a step in the right direction when it comes for better primitives for creating high-quality web apps. And React has started on this very same premise. The goal of React, as far as I'm aware of, was to lift the web up by facilitating the developer experience to deliver high-quality apps, with good implementations over performance and with the user experience in mind. Concurrent React motivates us developers into creating faster and safer user experiences. So you don't need to do React Server Components, but I do encourage you to try first. Third question, what and when should I suspend in my app? So you don't need to and you shouldn't stream all your server components. In many cases, the latency and the time for the round trip to fetch whatever your component needs to render is going to be marginal. And thus, you'd be making things more complicated than they actually would need to be. Streaming is there as a performance optimization. As a rule of thumb, you'd have 2 items in your checklist. The resource should not be critical for the user experience, or if the resource has unstable delivery or performance. So if an API is taking too long or if your database reads are not as good, then it's a reason for you to stream. Talking about streaming, we get to the third question. What is streamed, literally speaking? And to answer this, we get a little bit closer of how React operates under the hood. React has a JSON-like response structure that is sent down the wire. It will carry your rendering tree with the elements and the props, so React to receive that on your client and parse, understand, and render it. The rendering tree has been like that for a while. The big brain move is that this JSON-like structure accepts also slots. These slots is where the streamed components will fit. So a slot would be a tag like this, and that will mean that a second JSON-like response is coming, and React will match the label of the second response coming with the slot that it has in the tree. And that's how React's gonna fill the gaps of the initial rendering tree with whatever components are being streamed on. And with that, we get to another very interesting fact, which is the donut pattern. Based on the previous reply, you're probably starting to figure out you can actually wrap server components inside client components if you understand this JSON-like structure well enough. So in this JSON-like structure, React will carry the element and its props. So what happens if one prop is actually a tag to another component? Yeah, you got it. That's what the children props are for. So you can actually wrap a server component as a child of a client component as long as you pass it down as a render prop. So with that, you're actually creating a hole in your component for your parent to fill in. That's what the render prop child is for. So you basically define something in your component and say, oh, I'm going to create this little slot over here, and this slot's going to be filled by the parent component. So in this case, we can actually pass a server component as a child to a client component, just like this. And React will consider this a fair game. And with that, it's a wrap. Those are the 5 questions that I've seen more often when talking about server components. Let me know in the comments below if you have more questions about it or if you have other comments about the things I just mentioned. And if not, just make sure you hit the subscribe button because there's more content on React Server Components coming on. There's already one in the pipe, writing some Next.js app that's using React Server Components. So I hope I get to see you on the next one. Bye.